it'll send you a message. But I do this too so I don't forget, because sometimes I forget. And I had an issue the last time where it recorded like half of the thing and missed really good pieces. But Randy also married a Mexican.
Okay.
Yeah. He's in that group of people. That select group.
Randy, where are you calling from?
San Jose, California.
Oh, I'm going to be there next week.
Oh,
4
really?
days from now. Yeah, well, I'm from Cupertino, actually. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What school did you go to?
I went to Monte Vista High School.
All right. Okay.
And how about, are you associated to a school there? Or?
Well, I would have gone to Del Mar High School, but
Okay.
I ended up attending a prep school out of state.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it. But you went back there.
Yeah, I've been back since 2006.
Okay. And what part of San Jose do you live?
Between Willow Glen and Campbell.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
And my kids attended dual immersion bilingual elementary school.
Oh, okay. Cool.
My daughter just graduated from high school and she got the bilingual certificate.
Look at there.
Yeah.
Cool. Where did she go to high school?
The same place I would have gone that my brother went.
Okay.
Del Mar.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Paul, did you notice the Avance swag?
Wow, look at there. That's impressive.
I know.
The younger generations are getting into the swag.
I was gonna have my polo shirt, but they're already packed for our trip. So
that happens.
It does happen.
Well, I lived in Willow Glen once, but Tomas was on staff at UCSC.
Look at there.
Yeah.
My alma mater.
Really? You went there?
Yep. 86 to 90.
Wait, what's, did I say it wrong?
University of California at
Santa Cruz. Didn't I say that?
Yeah. Uncle Charlie's summer camp.
Yeah. Oh, it was summer camp you were there.
No, I was joking. I was joking. I was there the first year we had the banana slugs as the mascot.
So he did go to school there.
Yeah.
Probably a lot longer after he was on staff there, right?
Well, it was 1986 to 1990.
Yeah.
77 to 67 to 70.
67,
okay.
70.
Yep.
A few years before. Look at, there's Tracy Peters.
Hi, Tracy.
Hello.
And Chris Steele is hiding behind that dark box. Let's see if we have, there we go.
Hey, sorry about that.
Welcome.
I'm working.
Yeah,
Hi,
no, it's good. We need people who are working.
What's up, Randy?
And it looks like Hannah.
Long time no see.
Yeah, long time.
I've seen you on Facebook. But
No, I jumped off of Facebook.
that's right. You did say that. Yeah, that's right. Man. I don't ever make any posts, but.
And Janine Larson is coming in and one of the Hannahs.
One of them.
Hey Tracy, how are you? Hey, Tracy.
Good. Oh, I'm glad to know you're eating. I just got home too. I'm gonna turn my camera off and eat also. So
Is this Hannah in Oaxaca? Or Hannah?
This is Hannah Oaxaca.
How exciting. Look at there. Welcome, Hannah. Nidia is not going to be with us, unfortunately. She has excuses.
I think Leah will be joining us a little bit later as well.
Nidia turned 50 last week on Saturday.
Wow.
My mother-in-law is turning 80, so we're actually in Cancun. We're actually in the Riviera Maya today.
wow.
And I'm sitting here in the lobby of the hotel because our room isn't ready. And Nidia's mom turns 80. Nidia's nephew turns 20. Her sobrina turns 15. My son will turn 18. He's graduating from high school. Nidia's 50, I'm 55, and we're having a mega celebration here.
So was this kind of some kind of prophecy in the Old Testament that you have so many birthdays together or something?
Probably. And Wendy Dare, who is now Ramos, is just down the road from here with her family, and her parents are celebrating 50 years of marriage. And
Man.
her brother with his 9 kids are there. So
Did you see
Very
how
cool.
and I saw Jorge and Brenda,
This was
who are with
strange,
Amigos
but
Mission, and Ana Miriam, who's with InterVarsity Mexico City.
Oh, okay, well then go there. It's fine.
I'm hearing voices. Oh, there's Rocio. Amy M. There we go. Amy,
Hi,
why does your phone say Rocio?
because that's the name of my phone.
Okay,
Mm.
I should name my phone.
Uh,
I
Yeah.
haven't named my phone.
sorry, my husband and I.
Where are you?
Here's Tim. We're driving in Colorado.
Oh, very nice. Oh, there's Tim. He's one of my favorite theologians.
Good. They're going to be coming this side pretty soon, huh? When do you guys get here?
Oh man, I wish I knew.
Okay.
Is that Kevin?
That's
It is.
Kevin.
Yep.
Um,
And
so
we're almost asking you to give us a religious workers visa, so
There we go.
don't
That's
be
not-
surprised if we get the request in a few months. In a week or
Sounds good. I don't know how favorable it'll be because unfortunately we're having our own battle. Well, not personal battles, but yeah, everybody's taking a good amount of time. You should connect with Phil though. He is a good help.
who's Phil?
so.
Phil Dubert.
Yeah, we connected with them, and we've talked with Laura. We tried to go with OC. Their system is interrupted by the new regulations, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Which new
like everybody-
regulations are those? We'll have to hear about that.
it seems like people are tightening on the recommendations or whatever, and even our the website in February or March it completely changed. So
Chicago.
We're going to have a follow-up webinar to this call, and it's going to be how to get your Spanish visa in 10 years or less.
12.
12, okay, 12.
Realistic.
Yeah,
I think you're jumping us into a good conversation today already. Yeah.
you know it. Okay, we're at from Mexico time, we're at 2:07 p.m. I think what we'll do is I think we'll jump into our last webinar of our 50th anniversary celebration. We have been celebrating since the beginning of the year and have had all sorts of fun guests who participated in these calls. We've had the 3 Burke sons, Harry Burke's 3 sons, and Bernice Burke has also been on a number of the calls, and all sorts of wonderful people from almost every year of Spearhead history, which is absolutely amazing. And today we are really excited because for many years it had been a dream to see Avance replicated in another place. And we have worked all over Latin America. That had been happening for many years, but to have a base somewhere else had been a dream. And Kevin and Leah were part of that dream coming true and continue to be that dream coming true, which we'll say more about later in this call. So Kevin Book-Satterley and his wife Leah served in Mexico City for how many years, Kevin, was it?
5 total.
Yeah,
1 is
5.
Vancistas and 4 on staff.
Yeah, so served in Mexico City before heading to Spain. And Kevin will share a little bit about that adventure. And so without further ado, I think we'll jump into things. And I will share my screen, Kevin. Is that what we decided? Okay. So I'm going to share screens, and we're excited. We're thankful that each of you are here. We have a lot of just illustrious people. Whoa, this looks like a mess, doesn't it? Here we go. That's looking better. And we're in business. And then I need to see if I can't pin and spotlight. Remove all pin videos. Okay. And I think we're in business. Let's see if okay.
All right. Let's see. I want to see everyone else too. So, hello.
You got people there, Kevin?
I do have people here
Okay.
too. So
Excellent.
I'll let you know when to change it. Unless I can change it. I don't think I can. No. Okay, cool. Well, welcome. This is really fun and an awesome opportunity to get to celebrate Avance and 50 years in Mexico and to be a part of where Avance has been growing its legacy, not just in the Spanish speaking world, but now all over the world and every continent. So really thankful for this opportunity. Thank you, Paul, for inviting me. If you don't mind, I'd love to open us up in prayer and just pray for Avance.
Let's do that.
God, I thank you so much for 50 years, 50 plus years of which young adults have come to know you in a new context, have come to see what your church is doing in a new context, particularly in Mexico. We thank you for all the Mexican leaders that you have raised up and the ability to be able to partner with them, be underneath them, learn underneath them, support them. God, and we thank you for how your kingdom and your gospel has grown in Mexico City and beyond, and how we get to be a part of that with Spain and many other places. So we lift this up in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Forgive a little bit of the ruckusness we got going on here. So it's 9:30 here in Spain, a little after, well, no, 9:15, I guess, here in Spain. It's still very light outside. And so our kids are refusing to go to sleep and they finish school tomorrow. So they have no homework. So they may be calling for us. I will present Leah real fast. This is my
There
wife,
she is.
Leah. She joined me, and this is our dog, Coco, who needs attention, apparently. So she's joined this endeavor here for Avance International, Avance España. And why don't we shoot to the next slide, and we'll go from there. So in the beginning, it goes back to actually former Avance Mexico staff, Jonathan Mikes, who was my roommate in seminary. And I had met this girl named Leah who wanted to be a missionary in Latin America. And I had failed Spanish in high school and never wanted to speak Spanish again in my life. And when I met this girl over our first coffee, in the first 5 minutes, she said, I want to be a missionary in Latin America, and my heart sank. Lo and behold, every day I walked past a map of Mexico City. Jonathan Mikes had it up in our apartment. I never once looked at it. I love maps, but I never looked at it. Walked back and forth every day. And one day I realized, well, I love this woman, and we wanted to get married, and we wanted to explore our life and mission. And long story short, Jonathan directed us to Avance Mexico. He was dating Rocio at the time, and then shortly thereafter got married to her and moved to Mexico City. And he put us in contact with Latin America Mission, who then sent us to Mexico. Spearhead at the time, although ironically, we went with Spearhead, not as a part of Spearhead, and Paul invited us to be a part of Spearhead that first night that we were there. I didn't speak any Spanish, and lo and behold, I get to speak Spanish every day. Now it's a Castilian Spanish with the feta and all that. But it was an intense year for us. It was a year where recently married, knowing we wanted to serve our life and mission, we wanted to explore for a year, what does that call look like together? And so we went. Paul and Nydia and Wendy welcomed us in on a team with 4 other young adults, and into a family, the Alcantara family, who has become the abuelita, the tios, the primos for our kids, to such an extent that we are going to be celebrating the 15 años of our sobrina. And we come out in family photos, and due to COVID, we haven't seen them in 4 years. So we're so excited to go back very soon. In 2 short weeks, we will be there. So that'll be exciting to see them. But in this year, for me personally, I realized, I don't like this cross-cultural mission thing. I can't speak the language because like I said, I failed Spanish in high school. I had very little friends. We did work with a church. We were doing a ministry or exploring a ministry that really I wasn't so called to. I thought I was, but it was a bigger challenge to work with at-risk children than I would have thought. And yet we were mentored by Paul, by Nydia. We had great colleague friends, but we didn't see each other too much because we're pretty autonomous. We did have a great Mexican family, but I didn't know how to speak to any of them. And it was through that year that I decided I don't want to be a missionary anymore, almost crushing Leah's lifelong dream of being a long-term missionary. And I sat on the couch actually at Jonathan Mikes' house thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. I'll finish out my year, but this is where we're at. And it somehow a lot of pieces came into place, and God just showed me, wait, my language was growing and I was having friends. Wait, I did want to be cross-cultural and I could do that. And what I wanted to do is kind of mess up young adults like Avance messed me up, to get a sense of what he's doing in the kingdom under local leaders and dream big with people for their context. And it was kind of there that I came home and was able to share that news with Leah, and we were able to connect and say, yeah, this is something we would like to consider doing for the long term. We didn't share this with Paul and Nydia at all, or Wendy. Just kind of began to explore. We were part of the Free Methodist denomination. Avance Mexico had staff, so we're like, oh, we're probably not going to do anything like that. But something maybe similar for our denomination. Until closer to the end of our term, Paul and Wendy sat us down and said, hey, we'd like you to consider expanding Avance. And lo and behold, that's what God was leading us towards. And so we were able to set our sights on that. We had thought, okay, well, let's go to Spain, because something had called us to Spain. It was drawing our attention to Spain. LAM was in agreement, and we finished our Avance year. And 3 years later, we still didn't get into Spain. But here's how we begin our call. Molines, just so you know, in the process, we applied for our visa 3 times and we still moved back to Mexico. So hopefully that's more, you have a
can
better
come to,
process
you
than
guys
ours.
can come to Mexico. I know you've been resisting that for years.
I
But
think
so
you're gonna
this-
get citizenship in Mexico and then you can transfer that to Spain.
There you go. It is true. It is true. So here in the bottom left of this photo is our Mexican family. It's grown considerably. I think you can kind of see that little tyke on Paul's knee there in the front. Paul, I know he hasn't changed much at all. That little tyke there is the one who graduated last week, Andy. And so it's been a number of years now. And we just had a great opportunity as young adults, newly married, to explore our call and mission. And that's what Avance gave us, or Spearhead gave us, and launched us into what was then later called Avance. You can go to the next slide for me, Paul. And so it was there we got to really cut our own teeth. We looked to go to Spain, and God's providence and grace, all the doors closed, and we applied for visas. And finally, when we were going to get our visas, the inviting organization said, actually, after all, the guy who was going to receive us had Parkinson's, and said, I'm too old and tired to receive a bunch of young leaders who don't know what they're doing. So shut the door. And at that time, LAM said, why don't we send you back to Mexico, learn there for a year, and we'll see what God does from there. So we got to go back, and it was great. And this is us slowly growing into leadership. Here on the left, you see my daughter. She came when she was less than 2. Anna right there was slightly older. And then here a little bit later, my son was born, and then we have a 3rd daughter just after that. And it was this chance to then learn in leadership for us. That first year went, and LAM was conspicuously quiet about replicating. Spain didn't really open up. Other invitations from Costa Rica didn't really seem to pan out, and no one was saying much. So we deepened our roots and grew our life as a family in Mexico. And our Owen and Lydia were born there. They have Mexican citizenship, and we have permanent residency there. And we loved working with Paul and Nydia. And lo and behold, UWM came in and said, hey, we really love the Avance program, and we'd like to expand it. And we heard you guys wanted to go to Spain. And so God upended our lives and uprooted us from a place we absolutely love, and with way better food than Spanish food, to be totally honest with you. And people we loved, a church we loved, to cast our vision forth to what God had set us out to do 9 years earlier. It came as a surprise. Spain wasn't an open place, even within UWM. But Robert Bruno, from actually at that time from Panama, came to our house, stayed with us, encouraged us to come to Panama City. And it was there that the vision of Spain and the dream for Spain that we had kind of really resurfaced. And we realized, like, I don't think God's done with that. And so Robert in his providence said, well, you need to knock on that door until it closes. And if it closes, and I think he said, when it closes, you can come my way. And it didn't close, but Avance is heading his way. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So these are our first team. You might notice over here, this guy, it might have been on some calls. I'm actually kind of surprised he's not on here now. But he is the current incoming director of Avance Mexico there, Eric, and he is hosting one of my staff who has gone early for before the 50th anniversary celebration next week. So yes, there's Eric. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, Paul, you have a good gangster face in that picture. I just might have.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, and then here are our future Avancistas. They happen to be wonderfully beautiful book Saturday children. So, you know, our life was well established, and we still do the piñata here in Spain, even though Spaniards just pull little threads and let the candy fall out. We like to beat the tar out of things. But so these are our three kids. And I will cheat and say this picture on the bottom with Lydia in the Mexican garb is actually here in Spain at a fiesta for one of our Mexican friends who's a missionary here with PMI. And so I'm kind of cheating with that photo, but we still have Mexico strongly in our heart, and Spain has slowly pulled our roots slightly away to be able to implant us here and keep us here, although taxes are not helping for that. But aside from that, Spain has captured our hearts, but Mexico has kept a strong place. And we attribute that specifically to our time with Avance, both as participants and what it looks like to embed and immerse yourself in the context, as well as in leadership, and getting to know more deeply Mexican leaders, their vision, their heart for their communities, the things they struggle with, and how we can come on board. And we've learned a lot as we have brought that to try to contextualize that here in Spain. We can go for the next slide here. And so you see Paul and India again, but this time they're on the other side of the Atlantic. In 2016, the Book Saturday family crossed over, sadly crying, leaving tacos, unfortunately very good tacos, and a great family and great friends to begin a life in Spain, and to see what it looks like to contextualize an Avance program in Spain. And just 1 year later, God blessed us with two of our first participants, our guinea pigs, right there in the middle, and we got to have our inauguration. It was a very important time for us. You know, that first year is obviously a lot of cultural learning, immersion, changing our Mexican Spanish to Castilian Spanish, and actually to Andaluz. So if you're at all familiar with southern Spain, they pretty much eat all their S's, all their R's, all their D's, and any ADO ending words, etc. So it's a tricky dialect, I would say. And we did that for the first year. I still come out with my itas and sometimes Mexicanisms, and my friends here look at me with a cocked head as though I'm a little bit weird. And we got a chance to guinea pig with Audrey and Elliot there, and invite local churches here in Granada to our inauguration, which is a pretty formative event. And I'll say this because I think it starts to thread or weave a trend of what we see and what some of the main needs are, and what Avance gets to be a part of. So literally the night we landed, well, the night, maybe I guess literally not the night after we landed, I was still jet lagged. So at 4 a.m, I was walking around town. One of the big differences of Granada versus Mexico City is 4 a.m. You can walk around almost anywhere and nothing is going to happen to you. It's a very, very physically safe city. So I happened to be walking around. I left the apartment where Karen Dubert, who's on this call, currently lives, in the old historic Moorish district. And I walked around up towards the Alhambra, and there at 4 a.m, I really felt God speak to me. You need to be an agent of reconciliation. Avance needs to be an agent of reconciliation. And then right after I heard, but you need to earn it. Now I don't hear God's voice too clearly very often, but that stuck out to me from basically the time we arrived. Jump forward a year or so, a little bit over a year, and we have this inauguration. And there in this congregation, this church, we had the representatives of about 8 or 9 churches, and the head of the pastors fraternity here. There's only 14 evangelical churches in Granada, And the head of the pastors fraternity said, hey, I've never seen some of these pastors be able to hang out in the same room, because Granada has a history, Spain has a history of suspicion of the other, a history of division within the church, despite being less than 1%. And really, when we really think about it, we're just barely over 0.6, so 0.6% evangelical. The church has not done well at banding together. It has not done well at being in solidarity in its extreme minority. In fact, it's notorious for having suspicion against the other. Back in Franco days, some evangelical pastors would turn in another pastor to Franco spies because of sheep stealing. Of the, when we have 14 as a congregation and 2 go, it takes a significant hit of the people you've been there. That. So Spain has 0.6 or so evangelical population. If you include an influx of Latin American immigrants, that does raise it to about 1%, maybe just under. And so that's an encouraging trend here. And it happens to be more concentrated in the South where we are. As you go north, the average size congregation is probably about 16 or 17 people. Now with 60 years or so of religious freedom in Spain, only 18 people. Here in the South, we might have an average congregation of about 35 or 40. So it's still significantly small. And with that has come this suspicion between denominations, churches, etc. And here at the inauguration, pastors were coming in, shaking hands, and God honored lots of work that others had been planting up until that point. But Avance got to reap some of the benefits because of the networking we've done. Avance relies on relationships with local pastors anywhere we are in the world, and building up those friendships. Because we built up those friendships, people felt great to come, invited to come, and there they encountered each other. And because of Avance, we're not competing. We're not a competing church. We're not setting up our own shop. Or here they call haciendo tu chiringuito, the little fish stands on the beach is what the chiringuito is. We're not haciendo nuestro chiringuito. We're actually trying to be a unifier through friendship, through collaboration. And people were shaking hands and joining each other in fellowship, to a point where the wife of the head of the pastor's fraternity was in tears because she never thought that day would come while she was here. So we felt really blessed, and it's not because of Avance, but we did get to join in and add to that work. And I think that's a common thread, this idea of reconciliation that we have. So we got a chance to inaugurate that with Paul and Nydia. It was a huge, huge blessing. Over to the right, far right, the tall guy is our boss. His name is Jesus Londoño. If anybody follows Comibom in the early 2000s, he was the president of Comibom, the Latin American missions sending organization. And he and others decided to have the Comibom, 10-year conference in Granada, which he and his wife Mireia, to the far left, felt called to stay. And so they gave up their positions with Comibom to start CEPAL. And CEPAL España is the Spanish entity, tied actually with One Challenge International, but the Spanish entity of that receives us. And so they're our coverage. So not only we are part of UWM as UWM employees, but we're seconded to CEPAL, and we're part of Avance. So you can start to see the idea of collaboration threads strong, but also the idea of great confusion for all of our participants. So who do you belong to? Well, United World Mission, Avance, this church that we partner with, CEPAL, and many other places. We can you can see that we get confused pretty fast, but that's one of the blessings of what we get to do in this collaborative spirit, and what Avance gets to be a part of, because in collaboration we get a chance to work organically through this sense of reconciliation and bringing people together, bringing the church together. Let's go ahead and go to the next.
I'll just jump in there real quick. Nydia and I were just really encouraged to be able to be a part of the inauguration, but what Kevin's saying of seeing all these different ministries and churches come together, and they had a time where they affirmed the vision for Avance España, and it was really great, because they would say things like, this isn't Kevin's vision or Avance's vision, this is our vision for Spain. And it was just, for us, it was just a very encouraging time to see how the Lord was birthing this opportunity to partner in Spain. And we've been really thankful for Kevin and Leah and the work that they've done and the work they had done at that point to get up and going, along with Jesus Londoño and his team as well. So we have been very thankful.
Sorry, one quick second.
We pause for station identification.
I'm gonna try and take out my mic, but if it doesn't work as well, let me know. Can you hear me still?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, is it better?
It's clear.
Okay, that's good. So here are our initial participants. The first two on the left, you saw in the inauguration photo, Audrey and Elliot. They were our first guinea pigs. You couldn't even call them beta testers because Spain and Mexico, as you well know, are very different contexts, extremely different. Spain may be a welcoming context, but not to the same quickness as Mexico. So one of the metaphors I often give to people is that the church often acts like the food of the country. So when you think of the United States, what kind of things do you think of? This is a question answer. What kind of foods are there? Or what do you think of when you think of going out to eat in the United States?
Burgers.
Burgers, yeah.
Oh yeah, hot dogs.
Okay, hot dogs.
Strawberries.
Strawberries. All right. A lot of people think fast food, big food, commercialized food. Let this be a small critique on the American Evangelical Church, but we have mega church movements. We have all you can eat. You can, any program you want, small churches, big churches, fusion churches, all over, a smorgasbord of stuff. And that's what we're known for with food. Now let's go to those who have enjoyed life in Mexico. What is the first thing you think of when you want to eat in Mexico?
Tacos al pastor.
Tacos al pastor.
Mole.
Mole. There you go. Good. It's a street food. It's spicy. You can also get tacos in a nice restaurant. But it's a place of how do you say conviviality? And conviviality of being together, of fellowship around a small table, standing up on the street, whatever it is. And the church, we felt was very similar. Even if it was a well-established church with a nice roof over its head, we still had this community group where you had to say hi and goodbye to everyone. And there's a little spice in there as well. Good sense of Latin flavor. As well as some of the congregations we got to work with were very humble with aluminum roofs if they had that. Plastic chairs that more than once I sat down and broke one, and yet nonetheless, there's this just great street conviviality. The church is like that. Well, when you think of Spain, what are the types of food you hear in Spain or you hear about in Spain? What are we known for? Well, we're known for wine. We're known for olives. In fact, in the South, we're really known for olives. Just a little tip, about 40% of all your Italian olive oil is actually imported from Spain first. Italians knew how to market it better, and so they just get all the good olives from Spain and market it as Italian. But I won't let Southern Spain be too biased on that. Paella is a big one. Cured meats, cheeses, right? Well, things here take a lot of time. Olives take time to brine, wine takes time to ferment, meat to cure, cheese to age, paella to simmer. And the church is very similar. So while it may be welcoming to some degree, it takes a lot of time to build those relationships. Once you have them, they become very satisfactory, but it takes a long time. So that's a huge difference in the context. The idea of a homestay just doesn't work as well because in Spain, especially in Southern Spain, we don't do life in people's homes. We do life on the street. I average probably 14 or 15,000 steps a day because our life is in a walking city. Means we go here and there. We do life in the streets, even in the winter, especially in the summer, where it's not unlikely that my kids and our family will get home at 1:30 in the morning from hanging out with friends on a weekend, easily at 1:30, sometimes 2 or 3. It's just a nightlife in the city, in the streets, kind of a place. And so we had to contextualize it considerably differently. What does it look like to work with a congregation here that's much smaller? When we left Mexico City, the evangelical church and Pentecostal churches were 10%. I know that's not what it was 50 years ago, but it has grown, thanks be to God, over the years. Spain is less than that. And so what does that look like? Then we have the two on the right, Felicia on the bottom, Matthew on the top. Matthew is our only Avancista alum who has gone home. So we're happy to say that of the four here, everyone else has stayed. Audrey has decided she wanted to teach English, and she's gotten involved in other things. Elliot married well, not his Spanish teacher, but she's continuing on the Avance legacy of meeting a local and getting married and sticking around. And then we have Felicia, who's actually she finished about a year ago and came back on staff with us in March and is on staff, but happens to be in Mexico City right now, learning with Eric how we can join our programs a little bit more closely and align them closer together. And she's accompanied by two other young adults who I'll share about in a minute. But they're actually our beta testers. The first ones were just like, we have no idea what we're doing. Let's go for it. And these ones have beta tested. What does it look like to have a curriculum, have a schedule? What does it look like to meet with pastors for breakfast, learn from one another? And so this is what it's been looking like for us over the last 5 years to contextualize Avance in a new field. We can go to the next slide. And so this is Avance España today, where we are. Right down here is on the bottom is our good friend Phil, and his wife is on the right on both the pictures, Karen. We are super blessed to have very veteran missionaries, having served most of their life in Africa. Both grew up as missionary kids, served with some organizations. I can't remember I think it was Team, and most recently with UWM in Africa. And to their chagrin and our fortune, I guess, they were denied their visas in South Africa and had to leave. And they'd been in a program called East Mountain, which is similar to Avance in the idea of forming young adults for mission, for serving locally, getting them engaged in the context. And we needed some growth as our staff was growing. And they came out here and have been here for a little over about 1.5 years now, and it's been a tremendous blessing. So that's Phil and Karen, and then you see Leah there, me on the left. That's actually in Greece. So Euro conferences are pretty fun because we get to do it all over Europe and not just in one place. And then these are our female students. We just received a Canadian, Carol, who is there in the left of the left picture, just a couple weeks ago, and she just got her final documentation today, which is exciting. So this is what we look like today. We're in two cities right now. We're in Granada, and then Bree, one of our participants, has opened up the Malaga field, and we have 2 other girls in line coming hopefully early fall to head to Malaga, and we have 1 other girl coming to Granada hopefully as soon as we can. All are in the visa process, Molines, and we can say that while slowly, it does progress. And you can talk to Phil because he's our super visa expert. But this is Avance España today. Where we're going to go. We have expanded to 2 cities. We're partnering with more and more congregations, and eventually we'd like to be around 15 people between 2 cities. Felicia, like I said, has come on staff, and so we're able to really round out our curriculum through kind of an initiative I had in Mexico City. We now offer an MA partnership, an optional MA partnership. We started that with William Carey International University when we were in Mexico, and then we got here actually. We switched over to South African Theological Seminary because they had a very flexible MA program. However, because it was not accredited, most people were not that interested, and South African Theological Seminary said, you guys probably should find a place that will attract people. And it just so happened that around that time, I was connected with Sioux Falls Seminary, now called Kairos University, and they have a competency-based master's program, theological education, that basically lets us take the Avance curriculum, bring it up to a master's level, and let all that people do in Avance pour into this curriculum, where experience, learning under local leaders becomes a text alongside books they read, videos they watch, reflection that they have. We get to sit around as a learning community, and they get to earn their master's in reflective practice and mission on the field, and do so at a fraction of the cost of most seminaries, even though it's fully accredited. And what I love about Kairos is that it falls so in line with Avance with LAM's legacy that context determines mastery. That if they're not in service of the local church as the context requires, then it's not really mastery. And so they really honor what we get to do here, and will honor the same thing when we open it up in Mexico or in future Avance sites. So that's our team today. Super proud to have them and looking forward to seeing it grow this fall with 3 more ladies and beyond. You can go to the next slide. All right, so my staff who are here are going to be super sick of this analogy, but here's what I learned in Avance. Avance is like parkour. Does anybody know what parkour is? I can't really tell if people are nodding or not, but parkour is basically street running. I don't know if you've seen a James Bond movie where this guy jumps over buildings and flips over things, or you could look it up on YouTube. But basically, it's a European kind of way to interact with your environment. It's kind of like skateboarding, but without a skateboard. And you can do flips and climb things. And it's an efficient way to move your body, but explore your context. And so a lot of times mission training is just that. It's training for a specific discipline. Let's take running. Now, running for a marathon is a very biblical metaphor. So please don't hear me eschew Paul in that. But when you're talking about running, usually you have especially when you're training for it, you have a paved or clear path, maybe a few hurdles, evenly spaced out. You have a lane to run in most of the time, or a track that's been cleared for you. And usually where do you keep your eyes? Straight forward. So you do have a goal in mind. You use generally a primary muscle group, we'll say that, your legs. Obviously other muscles come into play, but you have a primary muscle group that you train specifically. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you think about it, if your eyes are trained forward, you miss most of the context around you, right? If you are only using one muscle group, you're really not exercising the fullness of what God has given you. And how many people of you who are in mission or in Avance or in Mexico or Spearhead or whatnot found mission to be paved with no obstacles in your way? That doesn't exist. Mission training without obstacles is not always that helpful, frankly. Tracy Peters, when you went to Mexico thinking you were going to go to med school later, a big obstacle happened. What was that?
We had the 1985 earthquakes that devastated downtown Mexico City.
That's right. And it is something that still to this day causes panic among friends of mine who lived through it how many years ago? 30 years ago, almost 40 years ago. Life and mission has obstacles. When you keep your eyes forward and you're trained without having obstacles, and those things come in, you're often liable to trip and fall. But parkour looks at these obstacles, looks at the entire context as a playground, a place to play, a place to explore. You get to use all your muscle groups, you use your arms, your legs, your abs, you jump, you flip. The whole goal is to have a lot of fun and let the obstacles become a part of what God is doing in mission. Maybe you take away some obstacles and any sort of sharp glass on the ground, things like that. And of course, with parkour, you need to learn how do you land well. So we have the things like doctrine, a statement of faith, Christian community, spiritual discipline, biblical foundations that help us land well. So we're not just taking risks to take risks, but we get to engage our context and hopefully have a lot of fun with God in that process. And so this is what I call Avance the parkour mission, because our goal is to see what is God doing here and run and play. And when we encounter those obstacles, maybe we flip over them, maybe we try to run around them, maybe we try to traverse them in a whole different way. Maybe we stub our toe along the way, twist our ankle. That's why we have a community to help us train through and be a part of that. So when I think of Avance, I don't think of running and training in one specific direction, in one specific discipline, but rather giving us a chance to really explore our context. And I think that's been a very apt metaphor for Avance as we've continued to grow from Mexico now to Spain and beyond. We can go to the next one. I think actually we can skip it. Oh no. So one of the hopes that we have here in Avance España that I really learned from my time living under Paul and Lydia, specifically seeing the legacy that Tracy and John have led there in Mexico, and then things that we've been able to adapt for here, actually comes from a book from Alan Hirsch called The Forgotten Way. But we have to, in developing a missional posture, you need to have presence. Now I kept the Spanish words here because this is true to what we talk about consistently with Avance España, but we have to have presence. We need to be with the people. That's something fundamental. That means having tacos on the street. That means walking around. It means understanding. Here it means having a coffee, getting a tapa, whatever. But it's not just to have presence, right? You can maybe know that a church building is there. You can maybe know that the gringo or the guiri, as we call them here, is in your neighborhood walking around, but you need to have proximity. You need to have a closeness. So this means talking to the person at the tiendita when you're asking for chicle, or talking at the person at the fruteria when you're buying manzanas, apples. It means getting a sense to have an interaction with people, being face to face. One of the things that Paul and I chuckled at, I don't know if it was a cynical chuckle, it was kind of disbelief. We happened to be at a conference center, a Christian conference center, in which in our hotel room, there was a flyer that talked about parachute mission. And we really couldn't think of anything exact opposite of what Avance is, where the future of mission is dropping in, throwing tracts at people like grenades and running off. And I'm not going to say God can't use that, but that's really antithetical to what Avance hopes to do. No, we want to have presence, but more than that, proximity. We want to be there face to face, get in their lives. And the next piece is participation. Alan Hirsch actually didn't have this, but participation is really what Avance is about. I talk to our people and say that we don't do mission to others. We don't minister to others. We minister in the space of mission that God has built. We're ministered to in that very same space. Whether that person wants to be used by God or not, may be a different story, but God is molding us in this space of mission. So when we're participating, we're inviting others into the space of mission that God has already invited us into. So it's a shared life. Participation requires a reciprocity. It's not the guiri or gringo missionary coming in and serving and only giving, but no, a relationship is built through reciprocity. It's built through receiving. For us in Mexico, is being really well received into a church, really, really well received into a family, to where we get to be a part of the 15 años, to where Christmases online are just not the same. They bring me to tears all the time. It was a relationship with the tiendita guy who I could pray with. It's being with our friends from school, our kids' friends' parents, who couldn't be farther from where we are in terms of our faith, but asking questions and receiving from them. That's participation, and that's where God has us. That's part of this missional posture, which then leads us into passion. It gives us a sense like as we're living life, we have a profound compassion and passion for our friends, because our friends are people, they're not projects. And when we have a passion, compassion means to suffer with. We are in life with them and we suffer with them. And those that don't know Christ, we suffer with. And those who are in the thick of growing deeper in Christ, sometimes that dark night of the soul and spiritual formation is not always easy. We are shaped profoundly, and it's not an easy thing. And we get to have passion with one another. And from that passion, we often are led into earning this sense of proclamation. I've got a kid here who's asking some questions, so forgive me if you hear some other things, but we have a sense of proclamation, giving life witness and verbal witness, but it's one that's earned along the way. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't tell people, oh, well, you have to wait till you hit this level of friendship before you can share your faith. No, often, and this happened in Mexico, our participants would come, they would go out, we'd be ready to go out to Los Héroes, where Tracy and John are planting a church, and they do door-to-door evangelism. And they say, well, I don't really like that, because I want to build a relationship first. We want to do relationship evangelism. And my own history was that. And I realized, often I get so far in a relationship without sharing my faith, without sharing something totally core to who I am, that I miss a piece of who I am. And therefore, I'm not really being a friend, because they don't really get to know me. And so we would go out, and most people were pretty blown away by the response of walking with the congregation that John and Tracy have mobilized, and they're taking the lead to pray for people to share their faith. The same thing here. We have a chance to share our faith right away on the metro, or after many, many tapas. It's a chance of when God's spirit and presence is there. And because we live this missional life, we build this missional posture, we build a habit of being able to not just share our testimony, but share life with the person and let God move within that space. One of the things in Spain that might be very different is not that you can't do door-to-door ministry here, But one of the a former Spaniard told me, or not former Spanish missionary told me that if you do life on the street, you meet up with somebody for a Bible study, it would be very bad for you to just bring out your Bible and plop it on the table. That'll put them off guard. They'll be very nervous, right? And they'll shut down because everyone else is watching. There is a shame associated with that. So what he suggested then is like, well, how do you do a Bible study without the Bible? Well, learn it, read it, study it ahead of time. And the great part is as you're talking about it around a coffee or whatever, maybe there's some questions you don't know the answer to. Well, that gives you a sense to say, hey, well, I don't know. There's an honesty there. I'm going to go back and read it. Why don't you go back and read it? And we'll come together and talk again. And so there's another opportunity to share life, to get deeper in with participation, with passion and proclamation. And so I found that to be very different here in this context than in Mexico, but still with the same principle of being able to live into and let the word of God seep into people's lives. So that's our hope for developing a missional posture. Paul, I'll let you bring us to the next one. And this idea of missional pedagogy, I'm working on a doctorate in this right now. I have a master's in education, so forgive the big words, but the idea of the way we do things that I learned under Paul in India that I'm kind of crafting a little bit more formally, and what we're using particularly with our master's degree is this idea of a missional pedagogy, a missional way of learning. That experience is a key text that we learn in not learning laboratories, but we learn in the middle of a congregation or in the broader church. We learn in the middle of a community or a context. You've heard me talk about the fruteria person. This is somebody that is a co-learner with us and we're learning from. We're not just learning from books. We're not just learning from lectures. We're learning in a group of people. We're not learning just in a classroom. We learn in the community, in the streets, maybe in an office, maybe in a church building, maybe not in a church building, maybe over top us. That's the ambiance, the arena we get to learn in. And then we get to learn content, which of course, that's the easy stuff to talk about in education or in learning. Not as easy to put into a context, but something we get to try to wrestle with. We get to learn about our character or our discipleship, and we get to learn about the craft or the way we do things, the way we get to participate with, in our case here, Spaniards or missionaries, usually Latino missionaries, in the context. In Mexico, it's under how do Mexican leaders do things there? How do we develop our own crafts as young adults? I remember one kid coming to a summer in Avance, Mexico. He spoke very little Spanish. He's a pretty outgoing guy, but he was at a church that the pastor had him preach, I think 4 or 5 times, and even took him to 2 other churches to preach. He had very poor Spanish, but he still did it. He developed in craft, and he came away saying, I never knew I could do such things. And that's one of the greatest opportunities for participants of Avance, is to be able to come away and say, I never knew I could do that. I never knew I could participate with God in that way. And I will say this, in Mexico, there's a lot more opportunity. Spaniards are a little bit more reserved, hesitant, or maybe better to put reticent to let us have those kind of opportunities. But that's part of our contextual learning and change as how we do that in our own community here versus the community or context in Mexico. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So things we try to do here, try to be innovative. Avance's lema, or tagline is immersion, incarnation, and innovation. So one of those ideas is this obedient innovation, really innovating from the context, not innovating, bringing all our American or Canadian or British or whatever stuff in and imposing it, but really seeing like, hey, there's some opportunities that we have and things that we see maybe that are different, and partnering as well as we can with leaders who are doing innovative things that are really engaging their communities in ways that are gaining a voice. And so one of the things we do here, for instance, is this graffiti safari, an opportunity to explore a context. We've had the chance to invite local pastors, and we go into a neighborhood that's really well known for its street art here. I still say this, Mexican street art is still even better. It's pretty impressive. Granada has much to learn, but this particular artist that you see here it does some good stuff. There's a chance to say, like, what are things you see? What are themes that you see? And then we ask the question, like, what do you think the neighborhood is crying out for? What are these artists trying to project on the neighborhood or draw from the neighborhood? Maybe it's a pensiveness. Maybe it's this lightheartedness. Maybe it's sadness. Maybe they're political slogans. And then the next question we have is, so what is would Jesus respond to that? You know, in this particular neighborhood, there's quite a lot of graffiti, for instance, that has to deal with questions of feminism and things like that. There's an important place for the woman and the worry of the female, particularly in this neighborhood. So we asked the question of how would God respond to that? And a young, I don't know, maybe 15-year-old said, well, Jesus really favored women in the Bible when in that context, it wasn't the case. So there's already this 15-year-old is having biblical reflection brought out because of what he saw in the context. This neighborhood we go into to do this has about 14,000 people. And as far as we know, there's not a single evangelical expression, not even a Bible study in that neighborhood. And yet it's one of the most iconic and important places in our city. And yet the church or churches have not put their eyes there to make this a place of mission. And so that's another part, bringing in pastors here and say, like, you never really even walk these streets except to go to a special or famous restaurant. But here, this is where God wants to be, and no evangelical expression that we know of is taking root yet. Can you consider that? Prayer walk this, etc. So this is an opportunity we get to usher in and bring people along, as well as training our Avancistas to think about context in a different way, kind of parkour with mission in their neighborhood. We can go to the next slide. And I wanted to move then on from Avance España to Más Allá, what we've been able to do. We were so excited to have been able to have a second site, to have it growing, to be able to contextualize the ethos of what we learned from Paul, from Nydia, from Wendy, from Tracy, and from the many, many pastors that we got to work with and serve. It's noticeably different for us, I think, because we've gone through Avance program, to see how we engage and see our context. And many of our colleagues here that are foreign missionaries wish they had gone through something similar. So we feel a great privilege and responsibility to keep that going. And about a year ago, UWM knocked on my door specifically as somebody who has a kind of a big picture, and also knowing that Paul, sadly and happily, is on his way to a new focus in ministry. They knocked on my door and said, hey, we'd like to see an Avance program on every continent. We recognize the many, many alumni that have served in mission in Mexico, stayed with UWM, or are serving in other parts of the world, or are serving their neighborhood, serving the marketplace, but have developed this missional posture, and that's a success. And we'd like to see that happen more. We'd like to be able to see that on every continent. And so that's a big challenge. It's a big task. And we decided to go for it with an expansion team. And so with Avance International, it is growing beyond Avance Mexico and Avance. It's moving from the Spanish-speaking world to now have to contextualize to 3 different places. Well, one of them is Spanish-speaking in Colombia under Robert Bruno and Marta, and I'm forgetting her last name right now, in Medellin. We're in talks with them. We've had representatives from Dakar come, and so opening up Avance Dakar. Thank you, Paul. Or Avance Senegal, actually. And we have a young adult who's their kind of intern guinea pig, looking to see how do they contextualize an Avance program. He is currently in Mexico with my staff member, Felicia, learning with Eric and talking about what do they need to do to set up Avance Senegal. So that has come on board. The RL and his assistant there have agreed. And then also we have Avance Thailand. And while we were planning on, trying to mobilize directors, train them in, let them live in Mexico or Spain for a few months to really get a sense of what Avance is about, God's decided to do things differently. There was a team in Bangkok that have come together, had already moved there, wanting to do something similar. And they heard about this and decided, after some talks, this is really where their heart is, in Avance Thailand. And they strongly share the same DNA of immersion, incarnation, innovation, the idea of formation through spiritual formation, personal development, leadership development, and of course, cross-cultural skills. Those are all part of their DNA that they want to bring there. And so they've come into this Avance International Network. And so we're really excited. And so there's a whole team of 3. So that looks like our next really big push for where Avance is. So we cross totally out of the Spanish-speaking world into a very new and different context. And you could be praying for every site, praying for people to continue to catch the vision of what Avance is, because it is pretty unique, as you probably all know, in the way we like to do things, the way we approach God's mission, the way we try to serve our partners and come under them, the way we learn from how we haven't done that as well, and the way we hope to pour into that well. So you can be praying for these teams in Senegal and Thailand and in Colombia as they start to come on board. Avance Expansion has a big goal of seeing each site have about 15 participants, 15 Avancistas per year, with the hope that many of those will stay within UWM in their fields or their regions, but with the excitement of that, wherever they go in the rest of the world, they'll be bringing this missional posture that they get a chance to learn through our ministry partners. One of my strong pushes for every one of these sites is to remember that while we receive students, and most of us here on this call have been blessed by being an Avance or a Spearhead participant and poured into, we're a motor to serve what God's doing in the local church. And so the formation of the Avancista is critical. It's important. It's key to what we do, but they're not our only client to say that. Really, our partner church and what God is doing with them is our long game. That's where we want to see, that's where we want to foster, we want to pour into. And so we need to develop a love for our context, more than even developing a love for fostering growth in our Avancista. However, if we do that with excellence, that means we're connecting with our partner churches in a way that's excellent. We're learning from them, letting them be our leaders, our guides, our voices, and we really get a chance to see what God is going to do in each context as it changes decade after decade. And now with Avance Mexico, 5 decades. I really look forward to seeing what 50 years of Avance España is going to look like, 50 years of Avance Colombia, and the other Avances that may occur from that. So thank you. Please be praying for this team. We're trying to see what does that look like as a network to share similar DNA, but be very contextualized. It's a hard challenge. Avance España, by the way, like I said, is grown. And so we're in a growth phase as well. So for me and Leah, you can be praying for us as we lead here in Avance España, but also take a network leader kind of role and help each one of the sites autonomously grow into what they're doing, but still maintain what the Burks started 50 years ago, what Tracy has carried through, what Enrique carried through, what Paul's carried through, what I got to learn from and hope to at least minimally impart here, and what the other leaders are able to do. So thank you for that time. I'd love to answer any questions. I don't know, Paul, if you had other parts of this seminar, but thank you guys so much for coming and letting us share our heart, because while Mexico has kept a piece of our heart, Spain is becoming more and more of a place. I will say this, you can also pray for Avance España, because while those of you who have an experience in Mexico City, physical danger is quite high, right? There's a risk there. I will say that Spain is probably spiritually the most dangerous place I've ever been, and probably the hardest place to share with others of what the work really is. But pray for this sense of unity, that the small, faithful to God's mission would come together, would unite together, would live that eschatological hope that we know that Christ bought for us on the cross and breathed extra life and spirit life into us from resurrection and on Pentecost, that we get to move forward in that. Apathy reigns high, suspicion reigns high, and it's slowly wearing for missionaries in Spain. Spain has been known to be the missionary graveyard. We honestly have seen a number of missionaries come and go since we've been here in the short time that we have. Many of my Spanish Christian friends, they don't say hi when they meet a missionary. They say, "How long are you going to be here?" And maybe if you convince them that at least your goal is to be here for the long haul, then they say hi. So that's a legacy, not to be a critique, because it is a hard place. The realities of the context are subtle. I can walk around, like I said, at 4 a.m. We can enjoy having a tapa with our friends and normally beautiful weather, except when it hits 45 degrees Celsius or 110 degrees outside here. But then there's that deep undercurrent of where the spiritual battle is. We need to be rooted in who Christ is, in the church community here that's united, to build ourselves, not to build ourselves, to be built by God in our spirit and our formation as disciples, so that we can serve the outcast, the least of these, our avancistas and our church leaders. Resources are few, especially human resources. There are far more money getting pumped into Mexico for books and theological education than anything in any of the Mediterranean, from Portugal all the way to Greece. And so here's a reality, I think, for the context that you guys can be praying for as Avance España looks to serve our partners well as they continue forth in participating in God's mission. So yeah. I think that's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kevin. What I'd like to do is ask, before we do questions or anything like that, I'd like to ask Tracy if you could pray for the program in Spain, and also pray for the expansion efforts that are moving ahead. And then we'll move to any questions that come up. And it would be great to, and also I'd love to hear later, you know, there's a number of key alumni here, and if you could just share whether you were on Avance, and Tim and Erica are sneezing there. If you could share the year you were on Avance and what you are up to currently. But let's pray first with Tracy, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this step towards the bigger vision of seeing Avance on every continent. I thank you for Avance España, for Kevin and Leah and the dedication that they've had there now for a number of years. Lord, I thank you for their willingness to be in it for the long haul and to lead others to ministry and mission in this parkour kind of experience. Lord, only you know why you've led them to a place that is so hard, but it's also a place where there's so much need. And just hearing about this neighborhood that's so key to their city and yet has no evangelical witness of any kind, Lord, I just pray that you would open the door for the first evangelical witness there, and that somehow Avance could be a part of that in opening the door for the gospel in an important part of Granada. Lord, I thank you for those who have participated and are participating and will participate in Avance España. Lord, we pray that you would work out your purposes in their lives and ministries, that you would bring just the right people there for the work that you have for them to do, and that through their experience, you would guide them to their calling and the place where you want them to be in your kingdom, God. Pray blessing on the expansion efforts, as well as we look to try to spread to Colombia and Senegal and to Thailand. Lord, we just thank you for how you have gone ahead and surprised us with some of the ways that you've begun to open doors. And we just pray, God, that you continue to do that. And I pray especially, Lord, that you would bring more participants to each of these Avance options, Lord, that you would bring the people that you want to participate, and that you would also help us to get the word out for all these programs around the world. So Lord, we just pray, pour out blessing on Avance in this special 50th anniversary year and in the years to come. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, let's see. I don't know if there's any questions for Kevin, comments, observations.
I might wrangle some of my staff to jump in on those questions as well.
That would be great.
And they're
Yeah,
hiding behind their cameras.
Phil and Karen, I think, are here.
I have a question.
Shoot, Randy. There we go.
So okay, I got lost with some of the figures and everything. You've been there how many years?
Yeah, so we've been here 6 years.
Okay. And what kind of missionary, like my first missionary experience was with Greater Europe Mission.
Okay.
I don't know if they're still there, but I'm just curious, like what you've, in your experience there in 6 years, what kind of other missionary organizations you've seen, and the kind of what success, if any, you've seen.
Yeah, so partnering with St. Paul, our boss here, like I said, who's Jesus Londoño, he's a big voice in the mission world. Left the top of the top to run a local small mission and participate with a small church that one of the things he said early coming in, he'll still say it today, Spain is a pioneering field Everybody's trying everything, throwing whatever they can at the wall and see how long it sticks, and let it be there until it doesn't stick anymore and continue trying. And I think that's really the case for a lot of things. So there are lots of organizations here. There are a lot of opportunities. I will say this, that there is a significant number of people based in Spain that don't work for the Spanish church, work into North Africa, work into migrants, which is both a ripe opportunity, but also can be, when a church is suspicious, they haven't necessarily accepted the fact that these missionaries are there for the bigger church of God, and so they feel a little bit left out. So you do have kind of that mix. There's a lot of member care organizations here. One of the good things is that Spain is a fairly cheap, it's a great ambiance. It's a good place to come rest, actually, for missionaries from all over the world. And so we do see a lot of success in that. And I will say this, that most of my colleagues have said that they've seen a lot more fruit in the last 5 or 10 years than the 30 or 40 years ahead of time. So we are really benefiting from what the seeds were sown for so many people who have come and gone. Many who have come burnt out. Everything is slow here. Like I said, paella, it takes time to simmer, and it's really hard for a lot of people to grind. And when you're perceived as the suspicious one, I shared a Bible study with our colleagues in Barcelona, who are colleagues and friends. And my friend admitted to me, oh yeah, okay, here's the Giri. What's he going to share now? Kind of a mentality. And so we do have to earn our place, and we do have a baggage. Some of it's earned and some of it is extra perceived as being suspicious. And but pretty much everywhere is still here. Gem is still here, going pretty strong, as strong as anyone can be. There's a lot of cycling in and out, and COVID times, we at Avance España are really seeing to have to rebuild and tool our network. A lot of congregations lost any sense of desire for innovation or even welcoming others in to participate, because they were just so focused on how do we keep our church doors open? How do we do this on Zoom? Are we on lockdown? Are we not on lockdown? I don't know if you knew, but we were 10 weeks of full lockdown. Every congregation was closed for a long time. Like I said, resources are scarce here, so no church had Zoom or online stuff really. So they had to learn all that from scratch. What does it look like to play the guitar when worship from one person's home, and they're on their little Mac mic, and you're 3 minutes delayed and you can't process that much sounds, all those things. So now that we're coming out of it, by and large, we're having to rebuild some of those friendships and networks and tools and meet up with people again, while we have participants here. I will say I'm really proud of our participants that were here during that time, because they all stayed, which was great, but also they were able to have a ministry of presence even virtually. One of our participants listened to music for 2 hours with a young adult that they mentored, who was just so bored and so hopeless. Like, can you just listen to music with me? So she spent 2 hours sitting on the computer listening to music she didn't even like, but that was showed up, and it meant a lot. And that person continues to be one of the mentees of that Avance person now 2 years later. So little stories like that provide our ministry of presence and relationship here. And I think that's what's most successful, ministry of presence. One of my best friends here, he has seen probably more baptisms than most congregations through his little soccer ministry, because he shows up in their life, because he even hates soccer, and nonetheless he hosts it, but then he goes out to coffee with them a lot, or goes to the gym with them a lot, or invites them to his home a lot. And that's made a world of difference again with a bunch of guys specifically who had never walked through a Catholic church, an evangelical church, or a Bible study, or anything like that. So, yeah. One of the other ministries I think that gives the church relevance here, the evangelical church relevance, is like working with at-risk peoples, particularly homeless, immigrants, etc. I think most of my non-Christian friends, that when they hear that I go out on Mondays and help pass out food, or am involved in some of these things, or that the Bible talks about loving our neighbor and we want to take it seriously, I think they're pretty surprised that evangelicals would do that, because I think they think we're just Bible thumpers who play a lot of loud music on Sunday mornings when they want to sleep or they're hungover. So that's given the church a lot of relevance in a lot of good ways. We know congregations that are getting invited by the mayor of a city to have concerts or fundraising events or being a part of, and that was not heard of 5 years ago. So we are getting to reap the seeds and the harvest of those planted from years and years before.
Awesome.
Thank you for asking.
Looks like Erica or Tim has a question.
Hey, Kevin, good to see you.
Oh, likewise. Great to see you guys.
Yeah, so you know, we all have experience with the openness of the Mexico churches. So how does it look different then for you guys as you're tilling the ground there?
Hey, Karen or Phil, do you want to answer that question? One of you guys want to come on? They might be close to sleeping.
I'm still awake.
All right.
There she is.
We got to see you though, Karen.
You want to see me?
I
I don't know
do.
what I look like. It's kind of dark here.
That's all right. We'll see a cat running by there too.
Glasses on. Yeah, I'll take the glasses off anyway. We go to the Iglesia Bautista. What was the question? It's late for me.
How do you find churches welcoming? You know, in Mexico, the church welcomes you with open arms quite widely. How have we experienced that here?
Well, the Iglesia Bautista has a lot of Latin American people in it. So I think that probably tempers the distancing. Our pastor is from the Canarias, and so he says he's Spanish, but he's not completely. I think what made the difference for us was that Kevin introduced us. And because we were Kevin's people and Kevin had already paved the way, then we were very readily welcomed into the church. Our Spanish wasn't great. We connected with all the Brazilians in the church because they speak Portuguese, which is our language. And we've been working at it, and I've noticed that the Spaniards themselves are very slow to let you in, to break down the barriers.
Yeah, Erica, I think that when we came as a family of 5, you know, in small churches, you show up pretty fast with 3 little babies, a bunch of kiddies that are new. And a lot of our experiences was kind of a half-hearted welcome at best at first. Actually, for us, there's a Catholic lay prayer community that some of our friends are involved with, and they've invited us to come. And in all honesty, they've been the most welcoming place we've ever experienced as a family, welcoming in the name of Jesus. And so they're like, why are you here? Well, we're Protestant missionaries. Welcome, great, join us. And they still ask us to say, when are you going to come back? When are you going to come? We have good friends there. So the evangelical church has had a history of suspicion, even more so because at one point it was totally illegal and you could go to jail. Now that's been 40 plus years of freedom, but immediately after the dictatorship here, kind of a humanist reign and an anti-ecclesial reign happened. And so we became outcasted that way. So we were outcasted from the Catholic Church in most ways, the political faction, and then the more humanist side of postmodernity. And so in many ways, the evangelical church wrestles with that complex and is pretty reticent to open up immediately. But I do think we are seeing more and more. And I think because Avance is starting to cultivate a name and a presence as not just Kevin, but Leah, Karen, Phil, Felicia, and our Avancistas, they're starting to welcome us more readily, more with open arms right away.
Amy has a question or a comment.
Hi, Kevin, thanks for this presentation. It's really, really informative. I would like to know how quickly the expansion is going to come online. Like, do you know when Senegal and Thailand might be taking participants?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So our first year, our goal is to identify 3 new places and maybe look to find and onboard a future director in one of those places. We'll before the end of the year, which is right now, actually the 30th will end our first year of this expansion project. We had all three set and ready to go in terms of this is a decided spot. Now each place has a different set of directors and how they're going to be on board will be different. Thailand has a whole team, experienced receivers of interns and a former intern there. And so they are already piloting their program with a couple of semi short-term interns and just really feeling out a whole bunch of the questions that they have, but they will probably have anywhere from 3 to 6 people come on in the next year to year and a half. They're a consistent pipeline with Azusa Pacific, as they hosted Azusa Pacific interns in another country in Asia that cannot be named. Now they live in Thailand, and so they have a great reputation. Senegal, they have a team, but they're not ready to name a director. The one person who's kind of taking a lot of the reins is a very, very adept and smart young man, but he's 23 and doesn't feel like he should be directing a program in Africa where he's still learning the language, as well as try to direct a program of his peers effectively, where some of the Avancistas might be older than him. So they're still trying to figure out what that's going to look like. Colombia, we have Robert Bruno and Marta, who obviously are they are cultural experts because they're both from there. They're both from Medellin. I believe they're both from Medellin. Medellin has a ton of infrastructure, but Robert and Marta are involved in so many things that they're not open to directing, but rather supporting what's there. And at this point, we don't have any likely staff candidates going that way. So there is a link with Mexico for some possibilities, but right now, as Eric's still trying to come on board, they're going to make that conversation come out. So we don't know when they'll start receiving. Thailand will be the first, most likely, because they already have interns already in the pipeline. We have not announced Senegal or Colombia too publicly yet or started to mobilize for either of those places because we want to get a staff that feels comfortable with making those explorations on board. But the hope is that within the next 4 years, so 5 years of this expansion plan, Mexico and Spain are fully mobilized to 15 to 20 people by then, which is going to be a stretch, especially for Spain and our visa process, as you are coming to know, Amy. But then, and the others are somewhere between 60 and 80% capacity, depending on when God brings the leadership and builds that network. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, we have a few alumni. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call you out. I'm going to start with Erica. And if you could just tell us, Erica, what you're up to now, you and Tim.
Sure. So I participated in Spearhead in the summer of 92 and then came back for the year for 94, 95. And that really was a shifting point. I was a young believer and God used that in my spiritual life. And so I became involved with a lot of short-term church organization, missions boards and things like that. But ultimately, one of the things that came out of it was the idea of member care. And so Tim and I work with Life Impact Ministries, and we provide a place of rest, spiritual rest, emotional and physical rest for missionaries and pastors.
In both English and Spanish, yeah.
Yeah, both English and Spanish. We provide debriefing, marriage enrichment, things like that.
And we were in Costa Rica for 8 years, and that's where we kind of came across a bunch of different Latin America missionaries before it became UWM.
Wonderful. So it's like you left, but you didn't leave. So that was good. Let's jump over to Tim and Amy, because you guys have had a bit of a journey as well.
Yeah. After I did 4 years in Mexico City, I moved to LAM headquarters, where I worked mainly in the personnel until Tim and I in the personnel department, and then Tim and I got married and we I resigned from LAM at the time, and we went to Bethel Seminary, and Tim got his Master's of Divinity, and we thought God would call us to Latin America, but instead we went to West Africa, to the country of Cameroon, where Tim taught for approximately 10 years at a seminary in Cameroon. We were on the Anglophone side, but we did do a year of French learning, which is what I'm assuming Dakar or Senegal is going to be possibly in French West Africa. That's very interesting. Hadn't heard about that. But anyway, so in 2008, we had to evacuate from Cameroon. Sorry, it ended in an 2018. We had to evacuate from Cameroon, which we thought would be for 2 months. And now 4 years later, it's become abundantly clear we cannot move back there. And so pivoting towards something different. And we sense the Lord calling us with our mission, which is Converge, to southern Spain. However, 2 visa openings have already reached dead ends. So we're on our 3rd try. And yeah, we'll try to reach out to you guys, DuBears, again. So we are interested in moving to southern Spain, working with refugees and immigrants a little bit east of Granada. We're thinking to move towards Almeria and in the Roquetas de Mar, which is the Sea of Plastic. So lots of refugees and immigrants working there. So that's us.
Wonderful. Thanks for being with us today. I don't know, Randy, if you're still present there, if you want to say what you're up to in life, you in Florida? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Okay,
There you go.
I'm not muted. So after 2000, well, actually, I guess I'll just mention some of what happened to me when I was in Spirit. It started in 99, going through 2000, summer of 2000. And I had been to northern Mexico a few times on week-long, trips, things like that. One time, like a 4 or 5 week trip. And so I thought I knew a lot. And the first month I was in Mexico City, I was eyebrow deep in culture shock. And I felt God telling me, stay another year. And I thought, wow, you're not that nice, God, are you? And so I did, and I ended up going to one of the sites that 2 groups of spearheaders had gone to 2 summers in a row, and it was west of Naucalpan in the mountains. And I stayed there for a year while dating my girlfriend from Sonora, long distance, and then she joined me the last 5 years, and we were basically trying to expand a local church. We evangelized like over half the town, door by door, and then a lot of things came together, and it was clear that it was time to leave. So we came back to San Jose, and I got involved in a church that I had known for a while. And I was looking to do ministry. I really wanted to do some kind of ministry. Didn't find many opportunities, but eventually with our previous church, because we just changed churches, became the missions coordinator. And that didn't pan out because unfortunately our church wasn't very mission oriented, but I did gain the opportunity of promoting the persecuted church at least once a month, if not more so. And so that's something I'm still interested in, and I still send out emails. I've also got involved with prayer, healing prayer, intercession, especially through a group called Cleansing Stream, and in our new church, trying to get involved in intercession. I still have a heart for missions. We support several missionaries, 2 of which are in LAM, Robert Wagaspack, John Mikes, and I communicate with them, so that's kind of what we're doing right now, as well as evangelizing our own children.
Excellent. Thank you, Randy. Chris, are you able? I know you're working. You might not be available. Janine, you want to tell us what you're up to? Are you able? There she is. You're muted. There you go.
Hi. Well, I married a Mexican and we've been living in Mexico for most of our marriage. Basically just helping out at the local church. We have a daughter, so I'm just working at home, stay-at-home mom. We've also worked at a Christian school for a couple of years.
Janine's one of our imported Canadians.
What part of the city do you live, Janine?
Coajimalpa, Acapulco, Coajimalpa.
Excellent. Thank you, Janine. And on the call here, Erica will be at the 50th. Kevin will be at the 50th. Tracy will be at the 50th. Janine and her family will be at the 50th. Hannah, who's in Oaxaca. Can you say hello, Hannah? How are you doing there?
Hello. I'm doing good, thanks.
There she is. And tell us what you're up to, Hannah, and where you're at in the Avance program.
So I'm past my second year of Avance because of the pandemic. I was in the US for my first year, and I was in Mexico City for my second year and then extended my time for 6 months. And I'm here in Oaxaca working with a ministry to vulnerable women that employs vulnerable women and also ministry to women in prostitution.
Excellent. Thank you, Hannah. Hannah's getting closer to winding up her time. She'll finish up at the end of sometime in August. Sorry, I have phones ringing here.
Come to Spain, Hannah.
There you go. Let's send her to Spain. That'd be wonderful. And Tim and Amy are driving around in your state right now, apparently. So in Colorado. So
I thought I heard that, but I wasn't sure.
And let's see, Karen and Philip have a long, they are not Spearhead alumni, but they have a very long history in Africa, serving the Lord in different ways. And we're there in South Africa for a number of years. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Karen, or I don't know if your husband's awake or more on the other side of sleepiness. Muted.
He says he doesn't want to say anything. Oh, he's listening, lying on the bed.
Excellent.
We were with the East Mountain program for 6 years before we lost our South African visa. And as Kevin said, it's very similar to Avance. Before that, we did training national leadership in Mozambique and Zimbabwe for 20 years total. So, and then we were both single missionaries before we met and got married at Columbia International University. So that's us. Long time. Many countries.
Thank you so
much. But we
much.
love being in Europe. We really love being in Europe.
We're very thankful you're there in Spain now.
We're thankful too, and we're very thankful because Kevin and Leah are phenomenal teammates. Really wonderful.
I brought Nidia in here for a second to say hello.
Hello, everyone. So good to see you all. Hi.
She's our birthday girl, so she's celebrating. Okay, let's see, Danielle and Sara, would you like to say hello before we begin to depart? Thank you, McFletcher. Let's see if they're here, Danielle and Sara, or if they're in a state where they can greet us or not. Maybe not. Chris, are you available? Are you tied up? He was working too. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for being in on this call this afternoon and this evening. For those of you in Spain, Kevin, thank you so much. I am always inspired to hear you share your passion for what God is doing in and through Avance and in Spain. And it's so encouraging. I'm so looking forward to seeing you very soon. And I didn't give Tracy a chance to say something, but I'm going to give Tracy the final word, just because she's good at those final words. So,
and I didn't push my way in today because I'm pretty sick with a cold, just
yeah.
sore throat, drippy nose. But yeah, so I did Spearhead in 1984 for the summer, and I'm still here. That's the short version. But came back in 1985, did the year team, and then became a team leader, and then eventually worked with Harry for 14 years. And well, actually only worked with Harry for 10 years, and then I became the director in 1995 until 1999, but Harry was still in Mexico at the time. And I've been church planting with my husband now since 1999, when I left Spearhead to I got married 10 years after coming, and after I had 2 children, it was too much to direct Spearhead. So we've been church planting, and we're just getting ready to move in another month to a new area of the housing development where we live to start another church plant. So we're still moving forward. My husband never wants to retire. So
Wonderful.
that's
Thanks.
my final word. Just
Thank
I
you.
look forward to the Avance celebration, seeing a lot of you in a couple more weeks in Mexico City.
And we're so thankful to the Lord for just what he birthed so many years ago through Spearhead, and continues to grow through Avance. Tracy and I were at Harry Burke's funeral just a couple years ago, and I think one of the things that just was so impacting was seeing the multiplication effect that the ministry has had over the years. And there was probably about 25 alumni there at the funeral, which in itself is impacting, just to see how God is still shaping lives through Spearhead and shaping others. And we're just so thankful to be part of that. So thankful that Kevin and the team are carrying that vision on in another place in the world that has so much need. And thank you. We're so thankful to see how God's carrying that on in each of the places where you're serving, all of you. It's inspiring. And we look forward to seeing some of you next month. And we pray that our paths will cross in other places in the days ahead. So God bless. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. And continue to pray for Avance and what God's doing. We're thankful to be part of this. So take care, and we'll be in touch. God bless everybody.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Good to see you all.